Thanks to a list of rumored 2017 figures, there's a lot of characters that are on people's minds these days that typically aren't given much attention, and this is one of them. In fact, this is the last time this character was given any kind of attention, but people are kind of talking about him again. This is Sky Shadow from the Generations line, but we know him better as Black Shadow from Victory, the pretender that was the repaint of Thunderwing, and appropriately enough here, he is a remold of Generations Thunderwing. I've already talked about that toy, but since everyone doesn't see every single video I do, we're going to approach this with fresh eyes and take a new look at the toy. So, looking him over, he is definitely a very, very high-tech and very, very sleek-looking jet. I really, really like the design with the forward-swept wingtips and this body lines that go straight through into the wings like this, looking quite cool. He's cast mostly in black plastic. We got some gray along the sides and toward the back, as well as a little bit of translucent red, where you can see a molded-in cockpit underneath. Always an interesting design to put onto a Decepticon, but he's got to look the part, I assume. And then, of course, he's painted up with quite a bit of red and silver. Black and red and silver. It's such a hard color scheme to get wrong, and it certainly does not get it wrong here. I really, really like the silver-trimmed red along the wings. Really like the silver-trimmed cockpit. Lots of stuff to really like on this toy. Now, I will say, for a deluxe-sized jet, compared to what we get these days, he does have quite a bit of heft to him, and he is fairly large. Part of that is accounted for because of such a simple transformation, which we'll get into later, but also because he comes with some particularly heavy weaponry. Twin missile launchers on the undersides of his wings that we'll get to once we get to robot mode. And no, I'm not firing them off, and I'm not making a stupid joke about why I'm not firing off missiles. I'm not firing them because I don't have to go dig them up again. But we'll go ahead and part with them now so you can get a bit better look at just the jet itself. He's looking quite a bit more sleek now. Without the missiles, however, we do start to see where the simplicities of the toy lie. For instance, obvious robot mode arms just kind of hanging off. Unfortunately, these just don't really have anywhere to go. They don't pin in anywhere. All they really do is add a couple extra guns to the front of him, which is not a bad thing, but yeah, they're just there. Yeah, it's a little disappointing. Also, if you just take a look at the underside, you can start identifying pretty much everything. Chest, legs, that's how it goes. He does have landing gear that folds up and down, so that's not a bad thing. And there are wheels that are pinned in, so technically he can roll around. He has just barely enough clearance to actually manage that. For main features on this jet mode, you have this piece on front, which, with a little bit of wiggling, if you can... go ahead. Right, let's get the landing gear down just so I have some extra clearance to work. There we go. Putting landing gear back up doesn't quite work after that, but with the drone out, you can actually have a little bit of a mini vehicle. I kind of pretend like this is a launch submarine, like a mask style thing. What it is, it's supposed to represent the little figure that Thunderwing, or Black Shadow in this case, actually was, and the rest was just a pretender shell that could transform. This was kind of a way of getting around that, because this had to be the main toy. So he at least has some of the feature, even if this obviously isn't going to transform anytime soon. But it's a neat little thing to have a spy drone that can attach on and off. That's a cool little touch. So with him stripped down, landing gear up, we can go ahead and get him into robot mode. We'll see what some of the deal is with him there. Let's see. It's really not a whole lot to this one. We're going to first pop the legs off of the tabs on the back, lift that up, and that's going to let us fold his crotch out. Folding out crotches is something that I never get used to doing on Transformers. It's just weird. Fold that back down. We'll move this piece up, back into position. From here, I'm going to disengage this and fold the tail fins down. Going to double hinge all of this. Well, let's fold out the wings so I actually have the clearance to do it. Just like so. And now we fold this to the back. That all becomes one backpack chunk. And with a few flips for the feet, that's pretty much it. You have your robot mode. This is Victory's Black Shadow, or Generations Sky Shadow, in his full robot mode. This is still fascinating to me because this was a toy that came out in America first. I wouldn't have expected that because it's a character with such little exposure, and it's a purely Japanese character. It's a Victory character. Of all Victory characters to get an American toy first, not the one I expected, but hey, I love any chance to get a little bit more Victory in Transformers lines these days. I will give you a close-up shot of the head, which in the original toy was just a repaint, but here you can see has been remolded to match how he looked in Transformers Victory. Big horns, very Armada Megatron, the more I look at him. Dark red eyes that come from translucent light piping. Doesn't work too bad, actually. Nice big eyes means a lot of light exposure coming through. I like the look. It's definitely unique amongst U.S. Autobots or U.S. Decepticons. Big horns. It's kind of a Japanese design trait thing. So taking a look at him in general, we do have a lot more of that gray now that we can see the exposed robot mode parts. Well, we could see him before, but now it's pretty much, pretty prevalent what is what now. And he does, as a result, look pretty clean as a robot. Considering it's supposed to mimic a Pretender shell, the fact that his only kibble is the wings and nose cone of the jet is pretty impressive. Like, this is not a bad job of replicating the Pretender as an actual robot. It does lead to a more rounded, more human-like, I guess, for lack of a better term, because that's kind of what the Pretenders were going for at the time. Similar to the head, the chest has also been remolded from Thunderwing to include a lot more detailing that was more akin to how he looked in the anime. I like all the little piping details and such. Gives it more mechanical look. I like detail like that. And this is actually a little bit bigger than Thunderwing's chest, so this is why in jet mode he just barely has that clearance in order to actually use his landing gear. We do have a lot more red, a little bit of white now, just to give it a little bit of extra detail color. And there's little tiny hits of gold here and there. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, but it does a nice job of just hitting you at just the right spots. The toy itself, I love the actual profile. I love the silhouette with these big, sharp wings sticking out the sides. It's a little bit different than what I'm accustomed to, which is more the Seeker approach of, well, the wings are just kind of there. I like when the wings have that little added bit of transformation, so they're not just, it's just a vehicle part hanging off of him. No, this actually makes it feel like it's actually part of his intentional design, which is not a bad thing. I'll go ahead and give you the articulation now. We do have a joint at the neck. It's kind of a ball joint, but it doesn't quite have the range that I'm looking for out of it. And it has this weird tendency to upswing his head as I rotate it around. So it's a little bit odd, but you do get rotation of sorts. You get a full ball joint on the shoulder. It's a little bit restricted because of this shoulder armor, but it does do what it needs to for the most part. Except fold forward, it hits against these wings. You would actually have to start disengaging things in order to get his arm all the way up. That's an unfortunate little design flaw. Bicep rotation, that's all good. Elbows, 90-degree. Wrist rotation, that's good to have. Nothing in the waist, but we do have fully working ball joints. Here they are completely unobstructed, and you have hinges along the hip skirts in order to avoid any further collisions. Do you have a thigh swivel? You do, but it's really tight on you, isn't it? Well, I suppose it's not a bad thing as long as it works. 90-degree knee. Do we have an ankle rock? No. We do have a little bit of a rock to the ankle. You can rotate it a little bit, but I can't quite get it to a decent angle. You at least do have hinges in both the rear and the front, so you can adjust his balance as needed. So because of some of the clearance issues in the shoulders, he comes off a little bit stiff, which I guess for a former Pretender is not a surprise, but he does have a decent level of articulation to him. So what about the other features? We kind of took a whole bunch of stuff off of him, didn't we? Well, unfortunately, the drone is pretty much done. I could reattach it to his back, but that'd just lead to a big thing sticking up out of his robot, so I kind of just leave it off to the side. We do have the guns, however. He does have the capacity to hold on to those, of course. So he can twin mount these into his hands, and he's ready to gun down just about any Autobot. I do like the design of these. You didn't really get an appreciation for him in robot or in vehicle mode, covered up by the wings, but I do like the big oversized cannon look that he's just like dual wielding right now. It does give him kind of a more badass persona. It's just like, yeah, I just grabbed the biggest weapons I could, and I'm holding them two-handed. You know, it's like anytime someone just like one arms a chain gun in an action movie. Kind of love it. I also really like the added detail of these mini missiles along the side. Those work in jet mode. Well, they don't work, they're molded in, but visually they work in jet mode, and they kind of work here too, make it look a little bit more heavily armed. And if you want to go even farther, you also have this added feature where I can pop one of these onto the other one. So we'll just counterlink them like this. There's a set of little tabs that will hold them together, and thus we have one gigantic cannon that he can now hold. Get him and hold it like this one, because this should work a little bit better. Yeah, we can. So he also has this one massive missile launcher that he can wield. And hopefully yours has really good joints so he can actually hold up that beast of a weapon. But mine doesn't do too bad of a job, so hopefully that is an example of the norm rather than the exception. That, my friends, is Generation Sky Shadow. It is fascinating to me that the American toy company is the one that released the Japanese version of this figure first, especially considering this is the first time Black Shadow's gotten any kind of love on US toy shelves. So bravo, Hasbro, thank you for giving me a little bit of victory. I could use a Star Saber that doesn't cost $150, but beyond that, I am very happy with this offering. And if it is true that we are getting a brand new one, I hope it learns from some of the little errors on this one. Clearance in the shoulders and simple transformation keep it from being a great toy. It's still a good toy. It doesn't do anything terribly wrong. It just has some faults that keep it from really excelling like some Transformers tend to do these days.